Well, you're listening to Newhouse Knows, where you go when you need to know. My name is Zach, and your hosts today are
Rob Platt, a.k.a. Professor Newhouse.
Aaron Michelle, a.k.a. Ralph.
And John the Builder.
We still need music. Honest to God, we need music.
I'll try to find a good sting for it, just like a da da da.
There's just gotta be something. John the Builder, dun dun dun.
Yeah,
I don't know. It was always a great device.
we could always try the Law and Order one. John the Builder, dun dun.
Yeah.
What was kind of scary though.
Yeah.
Who did he put in the foundation?
Sam Waterston called it the doink doink. He called it the doink doink. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Doink doink.
Ralph, you had something on your mind this week.
Well, you started it.
Oh, yeah, blame it on me.
Always
blame the father.
Well, you had listened to an article, or I think listened to an article, that had said that millennials had become the largest group of home buyers again. And considering everything we've been talking about, you were like, basically, what the F? We need to look into this. How is that true? Because that is not reflective of the lived experience of our clients, of me, of my husband, of our friends. What is going on here?
Well, it's kind of fascinating because, the point of the whole show, or the whole point of the show, I don't know, but you can fix that sentence and
sure.
post. But the point of the show is that we see things in construction, us first from a designer's viewpoint, and then John is the builder. We're kind of step 1 and 2 of big things that happen in the economy. We see them early. We see good things early. We see bad things early. And you usually can see me run over by the truck, but you can never really run fast enough to get out of the way. So it's great. That's the joy of construction. So Ralph and I have been looking. Most of our clients are right now. What would you call them? Socioeconomic status.
We used to be solidly in middle class. Now we're upper middle to upper.
Yeah. Or the bottom end of the upper class. But age brackets, clients that we're tapping into are strongly. We have a lot of millennial clients.
A lot of millennials and Gen X.
And Gen X. And what's interesting about these clients, when we look at this, let's clarify things. Boomers have been the biggest buyers in the market. We've been the biggest buyers. We're the biggest group. Mom and Dad were kind of busy after the war, and so they made a lot of us, and we became the biggest buying group. And it's kind of interesting because we bopped right over Gen X, and we have stayed the largest buying group until last week. And last week was amazing because we heard that, or we read that in numerous places. In fact, it became a pretty quick story that millennials became the largest buying group. Yet, we're seeing our millennial clients who, generally speaking, because Aaron just described the markets that we work in, these are generally higher income millennials, and they are waffling on decisions. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yes.
They're really considering everything. And these are people with really strong professional careers, dual incomes, real strong, financial positions. So it just didn't sing for me. I started looking at what the hell does that mean?
Well, that brings to our question is we've talked about how I just as of this week I am no longer a realtor. It's
right.
My license is gone. It's done. But when I went for my exit interview, they were talking about how it is a tough market and no one's really buying right now. So could it be the fact that nobody's buying right now, but the people who are the millennials, so of course they're the ones buying the most right now? Does that make sense?
It's kind of interesting. They're saying that we, boomers, and I'm looking at John. Actually, John, you're an X, but you're kind of a wheezy X. So you're...
Am I?
Yeah.
Actually, I can tell you. You're most definitely a Gen X. You were born between 1965 and 1980.
Look at you.
I'm a 69 model.
Yeah. Which was a very good year, except for war. Not good.
Yeah.
But still. But the boomers, we fell to 32% of the buying market. Millennials rose to 38% of the buying market. Yet, the market is in trouble. What the hell does that mean? Well, when we started looking into things, it meant a number of things. It meant number one, that a lot of boomers are trapped in their homes.
Mm-hmm.
Rapidly rising values that have exceeded. I mean, at first they were saying, "Gee, equity is great, and we're going to sell and move," but there's nowhere to move because it's a lateral move to an expensive property. And the second thing is they're being eaten alive in taxes.
Well, what's worse is it's not a lateral move, because what a lot of what people are saying is their mortgage rate is so good because the interest rate that they got, because, you know, they've been living in their home for 15, 20 years.
Yep.
That if they sold, even though they downsized and they would go to a smaller property, yada, 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 because of the inflated values of everything coupled with the higher interest rates, their mortgages would actually potentially double from what they are now. So they would have less space, higher bills. And so what used to be the reason for downsizing was, oh, well, we're going to make our bills more manageable. We're going to make the property we're on more manageable. We're not going to have to do as much. Now they're saying, no, I'm just going to stay here and keep my equity and figure it out later because it's worse to
and then
move.
they get the avalanche of taxes on top of that.
Yeah.
We watched a property that we owned that, and this tickles me to death. It's 115 years old. It's a little wheezy. It's a historic property. It's pretty cool. But it has gone up in value from when we acquired it, $68,000 to $280,000 in 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
That and there's no way in hell. There's no way in hell.
Reset's coming.
Amen.
It's going to have to.
And that's where we're going.
Yeah, it's going to have to.
Yeah.
Well, so that actually because I did some research and looked at most asked questions of stuff and sent that to you guys. And one of the questions was, first we hear that a recession or reset is coming, and now we're hearing it's not coming, and then we hear it's coming again, and then it's one of those. For the past 3 years, we've been hearing that things are going to reset, and people are like, okay, but when? So what has to happen for that to
let's
actually
take a minute
reset?
and bump into that. I want to ask John one question because you're the only guy at the table that owns a house that's in great shape, and you have a good mortgage, and you're in good shape. So we kind of wonder what that's like. If you could actually draw a picture, can we just come out and do the show at your house one day?
Can I
but
just
the fact
come see it?
When did you acquire your house?
Well, actually, okay, so our house is the house that my wife grew up in.
Oh, very cool.
So we switched houses.
Right.
I don't recommend it if you have a note on your house. It was hell on earth because
What's a note on your house? Just so that, in case someone's listening and doesn't know, what is a note on your house?
Oh, you mean like the mortgage?
Yeah,
Like the mortgage cost?
yeah. Like what does a note mean?
Well, do you mean you had a mortgage on the house you were leaving?
Yes, I had a mortgage on the house that we were living in at the time, and the in-laws decided, because we were going to add on, and they said, well, why would you do that? Let's just switch houses. We have double the square footage. Makes sense. We're trying to downsize.
Problem solved.
Yes, except we did have a mortgage on that house. So to move that mortgage over, insurance companies love that, by the way, and you have to get a lawyer involved, which was fun. So it took 6 months to even get that portion worked out because we were technically living up there. We just haven't got the note switched yet. So we finally did all that, and a year later, basically,
It was a good thing.
it was a good thing, and it worked out.
So, but what year was that?
That was 2000. What year are we in? 2013.
So a little over 10 years.
Yeah.
A little over
It
10
was
years.
11 years ago in January.
So probably when you finally did the exchange, pretty decent rate.
2.75.
That's disgusting. We all hate you. And,
Yeah, that's great.
Well, in my defense, I did 10 years.
in Leavenworth?
Okay.
That's outside of this.
Okay, just wondering.
That's totally separate. No, I did that because I had just decided, I'd always had a 30-year, and I just said, you know what, I am willing, because it was going to double the payment.
Yeah.
At 2.75, which brought the interest rate down from 5.25. So I did it.
There you go.
Yeah, so I did it, and yeah, we did. We did a 10-year note. But, right now, I don't even know what a 10-year would be now. A 10-year has got to be what, 4.5?
Well, not that you need to, but you couldn't even consider
No,
moving.
I wouldn't.
Well, no.
No, I would not.
Well, actually, we'd probably take you out and have somebody talk to you, a doctor, starting with, and some meds, which aside from that, you still need anyhow. But still,
Yeah. No, yeah, we did that, and we're happy where we are, and we wouldn't even consider going anywhere, not in this current environment. And here's the problem. It's a problem for some that already own, in my view. When I talk about what's coming, what you just said it, property values cannot continue to go up
no.
because it's added to your escrow every time. So if you, as a homeowner, decide, okay, I can afford $2,100 a month. Well, there's no way in hell you're going to be able to afford $3,200 in 4 years. And that's what's happening to some people. Their mortgage and insurance is going, I mean, their mortgage, sorry, the taxes and the insurance, they just keep ticking up.
Yeah.
And that goes into your escrow, into your house payment. So you're no longer paying that lovely price that you were happy with. Now you're figuring out, now what the heck am I going to do? You know, am I going to default on this or that or whatever? That's why I say I think it's coming. I think the defaults are going to pick up slowly.
Well, it's funny. Just the old house I'm talking about, we have family in it, and I renovated it, and it's very, very cute. And I did it out of my pocket, and then I reimbursed myself with a mortgage. And it wasn't much, $65,000, no big deal. Payment was squat, $500 change.
It's a good payment.
Because of taxes, I'm floating up in the high sixes now.
Yeah.
In the high sixes.
Yeah.
Just because of taxes. Mortgage hasn't shifted. Taxes have gone up. So you were looking at something, Aaron, in respect to this market we've been talking about that was disturbing you.
Well, I just, as we were discussing prior to turning on the microphones, the math wasn't mathing. And from two vantage points, from what I'm seeing in our business, what I'm seeing in the rapid decline and how many people are even calling to ask questions. We are not getting the inquiries that we used to get.
Precisely.
And once we do get inquiries, once people start realizing that what they want to do costs so much more than it would have 3 years ago, that it's now no longer within a comfortable realm for them.
It's scared. What's happening is they're actually afraid to ask now because why bother?
Exactly.
That's depressing.
So there's that from our professional perspective of what I'm seeing, and then on the other side, my personal life, I'm seeing that I can't purchase any homes right now.
Nope.
I make a very good living. My husband makes a very good living. We don't want an extravagant home.
Nope.
We're not extravagant people, but we can't even buy a starter home in the neighborhood where my son's school is. My little sister was saying that the home that she purchased back in 2020 has increased in value, that if she wanted to go back and buy it again now, she would not be able to afford it. So it's only been 4 years. So from both vantage points, I'm seeing there's this clear decline in what people can afford and what they can do. So how are all of these articles coming back and saying that millennials are now the biggest purchasing group?
Funny you should ask.
And so it became a hyper focus for that day.
Not that ever happens.
No, it's the tism. And so I went down this rabbit trail and found that I was seeing the numbers. I was seeing the percentages from multiple sources. So clearly, this percentage of 38% of millennials is accurate because it's coming from multiple different places. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, I've at least established that somebody isn't lying. That's benchmark number one. Simultaneously, there are still all of these articles saying how much millennials are struggling to get into a home, how they're struggling to become first-time home buyers, how they're, struggling to get down payments and this, that, and the other. So I'm like, okay, so clearly these two truths are being held at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that's good. I'm not losing my mind. these two truths are there.
Let's try and keep things separated.
And, well, yeah.
We're all a little mad down here, Alice.
So then I started looking into, okay, let's look further into numbers then. What are percentages of, first of all, what are the sizes of the generations? Because all of the articles kept talking about millennials and boomers, and nobody was really talking about Gen X. And I was like, okay, does that mean that Gen X just died? Does that mean that they're all living under bridges right now? And so
John
we've
is
just
an aberration.
decided to ignore them? Like, what exactly is happening here?
I would just like to throw out, because ADD brain, now I just got a mental image in very short span of John as a ghost and then as a troll living under a
Living
bridge.
under a bridge.
Yeah.
So next
by the
episode,
river.
folks, will be, hi, I'm John the Troll.
He
I
could
live in a
be.
van down by the river.
He could be a ghost troll.
A ghost troll? What?
He lives in a van. Totally cool.
So that's where I learned something that I didn't know before, because I never really cared to pay attention to it. Well, we always talk about how baby boomers are the biggest generation, and that used to be true. It is not anymore.
We keep dying.
Yeah, that is what happens, isn't it?
Well,
Way to
you're
cheer us
still big as shit. You're just
Well, a lot of us have to die.
not
but
well, but a lot of you made a lot of babies, so it makes sense. So I started looking up what are the population numbers by generation, and this is based on 2022, so it's as relevant data as I could get because censuses and whatnot. Baby boomers, which are 46 to 69, we still have 68.59 million of them. So they're still an ass ton of you. However,
That is an official measure.
that's a metric measure.
it is. It is. Gen X, which is born 65 to 80, there are 65.37 million of you. So you're a smaller generation. So now it makes sense. Okay, we're talking less about Gen X with these percentages because there are just less of you.
How many boomers were there?
68.59.
68.59. And Gen X there was?
65.37.
So
A
we
little less.
barring all the ones that gorked, we kind of replicated ourselves.
However, when you start looking at millennials, which is 81 to 96, there are 72.24 million of us.
72 point, how many?
24.
That's a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
That is a large anxiety number.
Well, and that explains something. I mean, let's look at that disparity. That large number, when we start, because we haven't talked about it in weeks, we start talking about the massive housing shortage. There it is, folks. We have a current generation that should be buying their brains out. You guys should be the belly button of the economy right now. Excuse me. And yet we have a massive housing shortage. And
And-
we're going to get more into this, but
And we've only eked out, we're only 6% ahead as the largest buying power right now. We hold 38% of the market. Boomers hold 32% of the market. Yet there's 72.24 million of us. Also, when I went further into it, we are in the prime of when we should be buying houses.
Absolutely.
So we should most definitely be the biggest buying power. We should be taking more of the market than 38%. What I further found was that when you start comparing age ranges to the generations, for instance, when you look at baby boomers when they were in their 30s versus Gen Xers when they were in their 30s versus millennials now in their 30s. Baby boomers in their 30s, about 72% of their generation were homeowners.
yes.
Gen X's, about 70% at 30 of their generation were homeowners.
Steady.
Sounds right, yeah.
Millennials,
Here we go.
50%.
Now, this is the number that Ralph and I landed on Friday that gave us both. I don't know if it's actually hemorrhoids. Would it be? I guess it's like hemorrhoids. It felt like hemorrhoids.
I've been battling a stomach virus all week, so it all just kind of runs together.
Yeah, it does kind of. Don't say runs. Anyhow, so.
Stomach hemorrhoid virus.
Well, it's the idea. How is it that you've got a buying block that is basically outpacing the two previous by 10 million people, and yet they are 20% lower in home ownership? Now the math is starting to point at something. We say the math doesn't add up to a good number, but it starts to add up. It starts to add up, we have a freaking problem. One that we can see, we can identify, and if you can identify the problem, you can develop a solution, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. What's the frickin' problem? We can see this now. One thing that's bothering me about statistics, they're dry. They don't. We had to dig. Aaron had to go and actually, Moose, the youngest generation, who's not a homeowner yet, he got sick and he was home. And so,
we've been sharing the same virus all week.
Yes,
It's been delightful.
Doing architecture at home is not exactly easy, but she can put on a research hat and go nuts. And so she did a swan dive into this crap. And that's how we got here. And the average person is not going to do that. And that's why we're doing the show, is because we want to try and do it for you. But when you come up with a situation where you've got the current buying block, which should by any measure be powerful, should be powerful. You outpace both of the previous generations by 10 million a pop. And yet you are 20% lower on the buying scale. We have a problem, and the stats by themselves don't show that comparison. You've got to go in and start pulling these things together.
But that's the problem. That's where I get that's where my strong sense of justice gets enraged, because they're doing it on purpose. And what I mean by they, I mean the media, the puppeteers. They're picking out these statistics on purpose because they can say, well, millennials are doing just fine. See, they're the biggest buying block. So basically, shut your yaps, stop complaining, keep buying these exceptionally high-priced homes, figure out how to get the down payments, and stop complaining. Our economy's fine. It's all fine. It's fine. Just keep buying the expensive stuff. It's fine. Stop talking.
Well, we're all mushrooms because we're in the dark and we're eating horse shit. And it's getting to be a problem because the media is creating a narrative. And I'm not saying the media is evil and all that crap, because the media, one problem is...
Sometimes they are.
Yeah, sometimes they are. Sometimes the media drives a narrative that sells commercials. So drama sells commercials. You want to make things look worse. It gets more listeners. Or you want to do something controversial. Or another group who buys media says to the media people, for us to keep buying from you, you need to kind of lean things in our direction. And so things aren't that bad. Well, things are that bad. By the same token, things aren't that bad, because I took what you did, Ralph, and I kind of went nuts yesterday while I was cleaning the house, which, by the way, the house looks great. And so it was a spring cleaning thing, folks. You don't need to know, but it was nasty. You were talking about GDP.
Yes, I was asking about that.
And that was very interesting. That caused me a real problem.
What's that?
Gross domestic product. Basically, everything America makes. Mm-hmm. We make a bunch of stuff. How much stuff do we produce? Now we got into something that pissed me off. And I am pissed off. I'm pissed off for you. I'm pissed off for all Americans. And I'm pissed off that we're having sunshine blown up our butts. The GDP in the 2008 crash, within 1 year, it dropped 4%. Now, this is a big crash. I mean, we saw what happened. 2008 was a disaster. We had a massive market correction. We had millions of Americans lose their homes. And the GDP dropped 4%. It took from 2008 to 2018, all of Obama's term, and 2 years into Trump's term to recover 4%. And it came back. Mm-hmm. It came back. In 10 frickin' years, it came back 4 points. Then we got gifted with, we waddled into 19. Now the GDP is doing pretty good. We're back. We're feeling kind of strong. It took, 10 years to gain it back. So it was a slog and everybody felt it. You remember, running your business was like trying to breathe through a wet t-shirt. It was just, it was just work. It was tough. Then we get to 19. Things are looking pretty bright. And the CBO, go ahead and ask me.
What's that?
Yeah, because I don't know what that is either.
The Congressional Budget Office. The Congressional Budget Office is great. They're your friend, folks, listeners. They really are. They are nonpartisan. They are gearheads. They're a bunch of mathematicians. They do math. They make math add up. And if you want real numbers that really work, they're the folks that really do it. They're the people that they keep in dark rooms and slide pizza under the door. Yeah. So, they're math gurus. And the math gurus saw things coming back in 19, and this is we're about to get into the heart of the meat of the matter. So in 19, they projected where we should be in 2024, this year. They shot out 4 or 5 years and said, we're going to do a 5-year projection. This is where we should be in 2024. And then we got COVID. When COVID hit in the first quarter of 2020, we dropped 11.5 points. Not 4. The market crash in 08 was only 4 points. COVID brought us down 11.5 points. We went down like the Hindenburg, folks. It was bad. We pancaked. So follow me. We dropped 11.4. We're in terrible shape. The next year, we came back a little bit. Hallelujah. We came back about 5 more points. And that was 2021, really. Mm-hmm. 2022, we came back another 3.5 points. And the beginning of 2023, almost the middle of 2023, we actually crossed where we were supposed to be if COVID had not happened. By the third quarter of 2023, we were 2.5 points above where we're supposed to be based on a good economy with no COVID. We're still increasing. In other words, pay close attention to what I'm saying. The Congressional Budget Office says we have returned in spades. We are where we're supposed to be. The gross national product is the strongest in the nation. The economy really is a rock. So why are we in trouble? It feels like we're in trouble. Well, that's the $1 million question. And the $1 million question is, where's the money going? And we don't have to look far to see, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, anybody can say whatever they want. You can write me, nasty grams. But private equity now owns your hospital. Private equity now owns your doctor. Private equity owns
prisons.
Yeah, they've taken prisons. Private equity is in the process, I'm loving this, of buying your veterinarian. Yeah, vets are profitable. And they're coming in, they're buying vets. They're buying everything. They have bought too much property in Atlanta and Chicago, and they have driven property values up, and they are taking a massive dump in your lunchbox, millennials. That's why you can't buy. They've driven property values up. And this is the beauty of the whole thing. People were whining about the stimulus package. Oh, Joe's driving us into bankruptcy. We're all going to die. The sky's going to fall. Horseshit. It brought the economy back. In his term, he has brought it all the way back. Not 10 years. Not 10 years. In his term, he's brought it back and exceeded and has us exactly where we're supposed to be. And that was the stimulus package. It was brilliant. And if we don't vote him back into office, we're out of our frickin' minds. And that's my opinion. Just everybody knows. Because the proof is in the numbers. So if the economy is a rock, where is the problem? Where the problem is capitalism gone awry. When we have private equity that owns so much of our lives and they're setting the profit margins, you guys don't stand a chance. Now, Aaron, you had a wonderful thing happened this week again. That the pundits were saying, or the negatives, the naysayers were saying, oh, it's going to drive us into bankruptcy again, just like the stimulus package was going to. And you had your government debt at least forgiven.
Not all of it, because grad school doesn't count. But yeah. I went to a fraudulent school for my undergrad.
So this is a thing, and everybody says, oh, well, gee, why would we do that? They didn't do it for us. Well, because she got a degree, because she's working in a professional career. As she said in the beginning, she makes a good living. I'm not a bad father. And, fact of the matter is, she should be able to buy. This is one step closer to alleviating debt that she was carrying, that the system told you've got to have a college degree to work at McDonald's. You got to have a college degree to do anything. And now we know that isn't necessarily true. But what I wanted to get to by the end of this episode was the fact that A, millennials are the largest buying block. B, they should be bigger. They should be a lot bigger. They should be 20% bigger. That would be healthy for the economy. We should be building houses for them. They should be able to buy them. Why can't they? Because the economy is solid as a rock. The GDP is fine. So the problem is we have bad players that are taking a lion's share of America's equity. This is a problem. So this will carry us into a whole new line of discussions, but the fact of the matter is, you guys are being, well, all of us, truthfully, but you guys are important to us, because if you are a strong buying block in the housing market, the industry picks up. And I will leave it at this. When I finished my research, what I found was what have previously been called blue-collar jobs, skilled labor. Skilled labor jobs are picking up in droves. They are expanding faster than any segment, and white-collar jobs are diminishing, except in construction. None of the numbers apply to construction. So, John, wouldn't you like to know as a builder, because I'd like to know as a designer, why in God's name do we have this massive pent-up need for housing? We've got a generation that's making a good living and ready to buy their brains out, except there's no product for them to buy. And we're not hiring anybody to do the jobs. Now we're zeroed in on the focus of the problem. So we'll leave that for another day. Probably the next day.
Well, thank you guys for listening. You've been listening to New House Knows, where you go when you need to know.